Does your car need an upgrade, but you're not too sure how to upgrade it? Well, seat covers could be the option for you. And I might have the seat covers for you. A very reasonable set of seat covers that look great when installed and can really upgrade the look of your car. So let's go and dive into these car seat covers and see what's up with them. They are the Caromop seat covers, and we'll see what they're all about. So these seat covers themselves actually have a waterproof neoprene as well as a polyester construction, so it helps protect your seats from spills, rain, sweat, pet accidents too, or everyday just wear and tear. And I will give it this, they are really nice and they seem to have a great look to them. They're not super high quality or anything or high end. They don't have that refined look that some seat covers might have, but if you're looking for kind of a budget option that just looks clean and neat, while also protecting your seats, these are pretty nice. I like them a lot. I actually got them for my dad, and he has greatly enjoyed them for his car. He loved them immediately. Now, to be fair, it was a big upgrade for him from like towels to this that were really old too. So he does appreciate that. But really, overall, though, I mean, they're nice seat covers. So yeah, they got like this 3-layer design that adds a good durability as well as a comfortability. And so it has that waterproof surface like I mentioned, but then also has a nice cushion foam core as well as the non-slip backing. So it makes them really secure when you're driving about while also keeping them very comfortable while you're sitting in them. They don't get very hot either, which is nice. So they stay nice and cool to the touch while you're driving about. Now, if it's like during the summer and something like that, and you leave your car in the heat and you don't have like a wind visor or a sun visor up, they will probably be hot initially, but once you cool down the car, they do cool down with it, which is great. And if you do have a stress about them fitting your car, don't worry. They are a universal fit, so it does fit most vans, SUVs, cars, and sedans, trucks even. So you can probably fit them in your car. Just double check the sizing of it and make sure it's usable for that, but they're pretty versatile. And like pretty much all car seats nowadays, these do also have compatibility for the airbags that are inside your car seats. So they have this like unique stitching on there that does come apart when you do need it for the airbags. I have not tested that part in particular. I have no plans to test that either. So I'm going to rely on trust on that one and assume that they will work when they are needed. And when it comes to the seats, they do have markouts for the seat belts, so it doesn't require any kind of like cutting or anything like that. You just got the marks there, so you can place your seats in the seatbelt slots, and that should be make it a little easier for you when you install it. Plus, speaking of installation, it takes probably about 20 to 30 minutes to install with another person. It just depends on the car, and install is not difficult. It's got very simple instructions to it. So the instruction booklet is like 2 pages. And when you put it in, it works nicely. Now, I will give you this. There is like a strap thing that kind of goes around that's supposed to go underneath the car seats. But for some reason, that's in like every single one of these car seats now. And I don't know any cars that actually offer that for the front seats because it has all these mechanisms underneath that help the seats themselves move, scoot up, back, sideways, side to side, whatever. So I'm not too sure why they include that in there, but they have those straps. So those are just kind of like dangle side by the sides of the seat. But you do have this like little foam pad or this foam roller that goes in the back of the car. And so make sure you push that all the way back to the back that pops out the back side of the car, and that will help keep the seat in place or the car seat cover in place. And that's important depending on how slippery your seats are, and something that I never knew for years. I actually never did that with my old car and my old car seats, but with this one, I make sure to do that, and it makes a big difference. So keep that in mind. And this one in particular that we got, it comes in a nice gray and black color scheme. Which looks really nice. It has a great look to it. Now, it might look a little off to the car that we put it in because of the center console being like a light beige and the car steering wheel cover is not great. But for the most part, it looks nice. I think it looks like adds a little higher end feel to the car than what it had before. And something that if you do not like the gray and black, you do have a couple other options, I believe, like a blue and black and red and black. So if you don't like that one, you have a couple options to change it up. But most car interiors have a black, a gray, a beige, something along those lines. So you can probably find a good match for yourself if you need it. And the biggest thing, it really comes down to this is affordable. A lot of car seat covers are pretty up there. Now they are higher quality, or they can be, but honestly, this one doesn't slouch at all. It's got pretty good. It holds up pretty nicely. Now we'll see on how it holds up long term. It's been in the car for about 6 months now, and have had no issues. It's made it through some of the hotter months, and also made it through some of the colder months with no issue whatsoever. And they still look great. So yeah, I'm hoping that these hold up for a long time to come, and I think my dad is too because he drives his car a lot. So I mean, I think he likes the nice car seats for himself. Anyways, I hope this information helped you out. Picking out some good car seats for yourself. Just make sure they fit your car. Until next time, I'm Andrew Frech. I hope you have a great day. Bye. And by the way, if you do like my content, feel free to give me a like or subscribe to my channel. It always helps out, I think. Pretty sure it does. But yeah, like it, subscribe to it, and you see more of me. More reviews. More reviews.